Dear students, welcome to Sri Chaitanya chapter at glance. In this topic, that is organisms and population. In organisms and population is one of the important area in ecology, in zoology. We are going to discuss about this topic today in detail to cover the entire area. Myself, Dr. Murali Krishna, zoology faculty here in the Sri Chaitanya, and now today we are going to discuss about this in detail. Here it is the previous history of the NEET for the case of this organisms and population. NEET 2025 questions are 3 and 24 about 4 questions and 23 about only 3 questions. On an average 3 to 4 questions are coming from this chapter. Then here let us observe the important questions appeared in 2025. Then one is epiphytes. Epiphytes are growing on mango branch on an example of which of the following. It is a very easy question and the answer is commensalism. Next one is another important question. Which one of the following equations represents the Verhulst-Pearl logistic growth? This one is also very easy question and the equation is, here it is, dn by dt is equal to r into n, k minus n by k. Logistic growth curve equation is also very easier. And next one, but here we need to understand one more point, that is sometimes some of the different questions are also rising from this chapter. In 2025, one of the most controversial question, that is about the fig fruit. Here it is, fig fruit is a non-vegetarian fruit as it has enclosed fig wasp in it. Then statement 2, fig wasp and fig tree exhibit a mutual relationship as a fig wasp completes its life cycle in the fig fruit and the fig fruit gets pollinated by the fig wasp. So fig word repeated many times, which makes the difficulty for understanding. And moreover, here it is, NTA given final conclusion as both statements 1 and 2 are incorrect. But here there is some controversy regarding the first statement. It is it non-vegetarian fruit or vegetarian fruit? So the perception of the examiner is a different way. That's why they concluded this point as both are incorrect. So here there are still controversy there for the number of organizations of different in India. They are giving their own way of explanation, but final NTA is the final point. Final NTA key is the final point. Next one is another important question, that is the equation of Verhulst-Pearl logistic equation growth, that is logistic growth model, that is 2024 PYQ. Again the question K value represents, that is carrying capacity. That is also easier question. Next, another question, when will be the population density increases under special conditions when the number of, here the option 1, death increase the number than the birth, that is not correct, and birth plus number immigration equals to the death of number and immigrants, it is not correct. Next one is birth plus number of the immigrants is more than the number of deaths and plus number of the immigrants. No. Here it is, the birth plus number of immigrants is more than the sum of the number of deaths and number of the immigrants is the correct answer. Then next one is given below are the two statements, that is statement 1. The Gauss competitive exclusion principle states that the two closely related species competing for the different resources cannot exist indefinitely. Here it is, not it is different resources, either same resources. That's why statement 1 is wrong. According to the Gauss principle, during the competition, the inferior will be eliminated. This may be true of resources are limiting. This is true statement. So by this you can understand in this chapter the questions are not that much complicated. If you study well with the proper understanding, we cannot or we never miss any bit from this chapter. Then let us observe the total flowchart of this organisms and population. If you understand this diagram properly, then it is very easy to understand everything of the chapter. Here it is, organisms and population. The chapter title having 4 important areas. One is population attributes, next population growth, next life history variation, and next one is population interactions. In this concern, population attributes explains about the birth rate and death rate, sex ratio, age pyramid, density, and next one is number of the population in a particular area and particular time. Next, population growth explains the natality, mortality, immigration, emigration, which can definitely influence the population sizes with environmental conditions. Next one is the population growth can be explained to different way. If the resources are completely unlimited, the growth will be explained as exponential growth. But in the case of if the limitations are there in environment which is more realistic than the other, that is logistic growth curve. So exponential growth model is J-shaped curve and logistic growth curve is a sigmoid shaped curve. Then life history variations in different organisms. Some animals are breeding throughout the life, but some are breeding only seasonally and some are breeding only once in lifetime. In another cases, some organisms are laying their offsprings are huge in number, but the size is very small. But some organisms are producing large size with less number. So that is life history variations are also we need to discuss. Next one is the population interactions. The population interactions you can find as mutualism, predation, parasitism, commensalism, competition and amensalism. There are 6 important population interactions are there. They are having different examples which are very important for NEET purpose. So let us observe one by one in detail from this chapter. Now let us observe the point. Here it is, the chapter Organisms and Population. We need to go in detail as per NCERT. Let us observe the ecology topic. Let us observe the ecology topic. In this ecology topic, organisms and population topic. So in this organisms and population plus ecosystem biodiversity, these 3 are the important topics in ecology. Among these, today we are going to discuss about the organisms and population. For this, the introductory part is also very important. So let us observe the important points in related to introductory part even, because in last year some of the questions arised from the scientist name and the years even. That's why you need to find the Ramdev Mishra, revered as the father of ecology in India, and their born time, that is in 1908, and he got degree from the Leeds University, and next he was worked as the Department of Botany in Benares Hindu University, and he worked for India in a different regions, especially the foundations and understanding of tropical communities and their succession values, and he explained about these factors, and he also made some of the establishment role for the Ministry of Environment, Science, Environment and Forest. Then let us observe the next continuation part, that is the organisms and population topic. From this topic, let us go with one by one in detail. So here it is, the organisms and population. Every organism in environment maintained by different constructive components. Especially you can find all the living organisms are constructed in a particular complexity, from the macromolecules, cells, tissues, organs, individual organisms, population, communities and ecosystem. So here, and finally biomes. This is the hierarchy levels. The hierarchy levels are from the macromolecules to, here it is, cells to tissues, tissues together organs, organ together organ systems to organisms, population, communities, ecosystem and biomes. Here organ system is not there in this part because it is not related to the concern point of ecology. That's why organ system word is not there, that you need to observe. And the next point is, for understanding ecology, you need to know about the association with environment. There are 2 types of questions we can raise in this. One is how type questions and why type questions. If you ask any question regarding any information for organism, how type questions explains about its physiology. Especially you can find how a bird can sing. That means the bird having this vocal structure, means the syrinx part is there which can generate the sound and it is creating or generating sound. But if the question is for why, that means the organism, why it is making sound, means it is maybe a call for the another mate during the breeding season. So the second point explains about its behavior. That's why we need to understand organisms and its environment together. Then let us observe some of the other questions in this part. Here it is, why are the night blooming flowers are generally white in color? The reason behind, the nighttime white color can be reflected better than the others. So that is the only reason behind this. Second point is, how does the bee know which flower has nectar? There is electrical charge difference is there. Whenever the nectar, a flower with nectar can exhibit its negatively charged surface, this can be attracted by the bees to collect the nectar from that part. Next one is the cactus. Why the cactus having so many thorns? The reason behind, well, that is these thorns are protecting from the browsers. That's why it is the defense mechanism. Next one is, how does the chick spruce recognizes her mother in easily way? Because they are capable to find out with the, what we call known as the bigger size of the object which is available in nearby can be considered as its a mother. That is the important point. These are the important questions we need to know. Next point here it is the ecology definition. The definition of ecology is explaining that here it is a subject which studies the interactions among organisms and between the organisms and the physical abiotic environment. So here biotic and abiotic environment conditions together will be influences here. Then next one is, there are the biological organization can be explained with the 4 levels. What are those? One is organisms, populations, communities and biome. Organisms, populations, communities and biome are the 4 important hierarchy levels of the biological organization. Then next point here it is population. In the case of population topic, let us observe the point as the population attributes. Attributes means population, generalized term for attributes is the characters. The population characters, generally no organism can survive alone. Definitely they need to associate with another one is one point at the same condition. Rarely we are observing the isolated organisms. Single individuals of any species are very rare in our environment. Then, so any organism which is defined as population. How to understand the population definition? A well-defined geographical area share or compete for the similar resources, either potentially interbreed and thus constitute a population. So here important points what you need to understand from this area. Here it is, they must be potentially interbreed and next they share, compete for the similar resources. A well-defined geographical area is considered as a population. And some of the important examples for the population mentioned here as the cormorants in the wetland and rats in abundant dwelling parts and teakwood trees in a forest tract. Then another one is bacterian culture is also considered as a population, and lotus plants in a pond are some of the important examples regarding this. And moreover, very important note you need to understand, this is the population ecology. Read this word, it is the population ecology is therefore an important area because it links ecology to population genetics and evolution. A very important statement you need to note again, the population ecology is therefore an important area because it links the ecology to population genetics and evolution. This is another important point. Next point here it is, another important point, that is population versus organism. Organisms are having births and death, but population having birth rate and death rate. The birth rate or death rate in population can be exhibited as per capita. Can be considered as per capita value. We need to consider this point. And the second point here it is, there is some calculation part is there for this population identification. Here it is, in this question, if a lake having around 40 organisms, in that 4 dead during the last year, then the death rate will be 4 out of 40, that means 0.1. But in the case of another example mentioned, it is in a lake, we find some of the lotus plants Lotus plants are 20 in last year. At present, they are 28. The difference number is 8 out of 20. Then the value is 0.4 is known as birth rate. So here birth rate means number of organisms increased by initial number, and death rate is number of organisms decreased by initial number. That is birth rate and death rate are important to understand the population whether it is flourishing or not. Next point is the sex ratio. The sex ratio in any population is very important because male female ratio, if it is not same or if it is very wide difference, definitely it can influence the population count or population progressive condition in timing. Then next one is, here they mention is the sex ratio of the population. Example mentioned, the male and female ratios can be 60:40. It can be present. It is not mandatory for every time having 60 and 40. Then next point here it is another important point, age pyramids. Age pyramids explains what? Here in the case of age pyramids, every population maintains not the same age of the people. They can be pre-reproductive age people or reproductive age people, and post-reproductive age people definitely can be present in every population. In case you can consider the humans here even. So in case if you take the human population, in that cases the age pyramid can be explained as whether it is growing pyramid or stable pyramid or declining pyramid based on the age. If the new age individuals or the youngsters are more in any population, definitely population can be flourish. If the new individuals or if the youngers are lower than the older number, then definitely the population can be declining progressive of timing. That is important point we need to understand. Next point here it is, let us observe these concepts here. So in the case of first image, you can find the pre-reproductive age people are larger number than the reproductive age people. That's why the population can be considered as upright pyramid. It explains about the flourishing population or increasing population. But in the second condition, the pre-reproductive age number is almost equal in some levels of the reproductive age number. It is bell-shaped pyramid that representing that is a stable pyramid. Means the population is not flourishing soon or not declining soon. It is maintaining the stable condition. And if the pre-reproductive age people are very lesser than the others, then it will be considered as a declining pyramid. Its shape is urn or inverted pot shape pyramid. So age pyramids definitely explains the population progress, whether it is declining, stable or increasing. Then one more important point, for every case of this, here the vertical line of this diagram is explaining that it is the difference of the male and female. It can be considered sex ratio can be applicable for this part. Here it is one side male and one side female arrangements can be applicable. So every age pyramid explains the sex ratio even. That is important point here. And the next one is then population size. Here in these lines it explains about the population size. So population size can be either bigger or smaller. It is different with the different environment, and moreover the population can be defined by the environment in that location. The population flourishing or declining is depending on the surrounding conditions with the competition, next another species with the competition of the food and predator and pesticides or parasitic effect. So either parasites or predators or competition altogether definitely influences the population. If the population flourishes means these are all not disturbing the population. If they are lesser means if they are not disturbing the population, definitely population size can be increases. Then the size of the population need not to be the very bigger. Example here it is, the Siberian cranes mentioned here, the number is lesser than 10. They are also considered as a population, but in the case of Chlamydomonas in pond, their number is in millions. So millions of the organisms present within a population. That's why population size need not define with a particular number. Then next point is a population density. The population size technically known as population density. Population size is also considered as population density technically. So in this condition, population density can be measured in the form of n. Population density measured in n. So in this condition, the total number is very important to understand, but every time total number of population counting is not at all possible. Understand? So here, although total number is generally most appropriate measure of the population density, in some cases it is not perfect in certain levels. For example, let us take small example in this case. For example, I take one of the banyan tree with a huge canopy, and number of Parthenium plants are there. These Parthenium plants are 200 in number. Banyan tree is 1. So here, what is representing? If I ask a question, how many plants are there? That means 201. 201 number. So if you give the same number for explanation purpose, you are underestimating the banyan tree. That means it is not correct explanation about the importance of banyan tree. But if you take the weight of this, definitely you can find the banyan tree weight is in the tons, but Parthenium weight is very less with the comparatively. So in that cases, biomass is more accurate than the total number of the organisms. So biomass is more accurate than the others is very important, you need to consider. At the same condition, if I ask a question when a elephant is traveling in one area, okay, so some backside there are 8 ants are moving and 1 elephant is moving. So if 1 elephant back with 8 ants, if I ask how many animals are there, means if you give answer as 9 animals, definitely elephant will feel hurt. Am I right? So while in that cases, elephant number should not be compared with the ants number. But if you consider the weight of the elephant is very huge and the negligible number of the weight, negligible weight for the ants. That's why biomass is more accurate than the number. That is important point you need to consider. And the next point here it is, here counting the number. Number of organisms counting is not at all possible every time accurate. For example, if you count today's India population in internet, then you can find 148 crores or so on so numbers. But it is not exact number, it is an average number. For every minute 3 members are generating in India, that is one point for example. It is, so at the same condition what you need to understand, here the large number of the population if it is there, it is not possible to count accurate. So then what is the importance to count the number? So only for the point here is the number of population, exact number is not required even for the understanding of population flourishment or decline. For example, if you take a forest having 1,000 rabbits or a grassland having 1,000 rabbits, in the next year if it is having 1,015 or 1,020, both is explaining that the population is flourishing. Either 900 or 800, both are explaining the population decline. That's why average number is enough for certain cases to find out the population density. So here in some cases the counting number need not to be the accurate for every time. Then next point here it is the indirect count. Here there is one example. If I give some of the bacterial colony, how you can identify the number of bacteria within the colony? For example, if I take the bacterial colony in a Petri plate, then we need to dilute with this liquid and again dilute with another test tube, another dilution. By the serial dilution, then finally we can observe under microscope to count the number per 1 cubic millimeter. By that way we can estimate the bacterial count. I hope you know the typhoid test, they can identify the ratio only to find out the 1:60, 160 or 80 or 200 ratios are identifying for the typhoid presence by the viral test. So at the same condition, the bacterial identification can be possible with the serial dilution method that is using. And then in some cases, how to count the fishes in a particular lake. So for this concern also you need to know, here it is, the fish count in a particular lake. For example, this is a lake having some X number of the fishes. To find out the X number of the fishes, if you trap one area with 20 fishes within 1 meter square area, then you can calculate how many meter square area of this lake. By that way you can multiply the number. So single trap even can be find out the average number of the fishes. This one can be considered as average count. But another important point is the indirect count. Indirect count example is tiger census. So tiger census. So in case if you want to count a number of tigers in a forest, you cannot ask all the tigers to come in front of you to make a picture along with you. This is not possible. So while in that cases, let us observe the another options. Those are tiger pug marks and fecal pellets are using as the identity marks of the number of tigers in a forest. This is known as indirect count. Catch your point? Indirect count is the important another method. Then next point is population growth. The population growth is not a static parameter, it can be altered and differentiate different conditions. Then various factors including food availability, predation and pressure and adverse weather conditions definitely will influence the population growth. So population, if it is flourishing or declining, is definitely influenced by the environment. That we should observe in this point. Here it is. The population growth can be influenced by important facts like natality. That means number of births takes place in that population particular time. Mortality, the number of deaths in population during the given time. Immigration, how many organisms came over from elsewhere to here within the particular time. And immigration, how many organisms move out from this area to other area within the particular time. These all together are definitely influencing. But among this, the natality increases the population and immigration also increases the population. And mortality decreases the population, immigration also decreases the population. But one point you need to understand, natality and immigration, which one can increase population instantly? Births will not take instant in a population, but immigration can be possible. That's why you need to understand the natality comparatively, immigration can increase the population more adversely than the natality. This is very important point in this concept. And another one is very simple formula you need to understand from this part. That is NT plus 1 is equal to N plus NT plus birth number plus immigration minus death number plus immigration. What do you need to understand? A particular population after particular time is equal to initial population plus number of births plus immigration minus number of deaths plus immigration. That is a simple formula you can calculate the number of organisms increase in a particular time. That is the basic population growth density identification. Next one is here the point you need to understand, that is the immigration may contribute more significantly to population growth than the rates. The birth rate, compare the birth rate, the immigration can be contribute more efficient way. That is important point. And the next thing is growth models. What are the important growth models are there in population? Growth models. Growth models explains about the population growth in a particular time and with the surrounding resources availability. Now let us observe the exponential growth. Exponential growth means when the resources like food and space availability, if they are absolutely unlimited, then the population can grow, ultimately increases. So here you need to understand, when the resources in a habitat are unlimited, each species has the ability to realize fully its innate potential to grow in number. Means, for example, if Oscar is laying eggs approximately 2 millions per day, 2 lakhs per day eggs. So in that cases, if the 2 lakhs altogether, if they turn into adult, then each one can produce again 2 lakhs per day. If we all together can increase like this, on entire earth, all occupied by the Oscaris only, but it is not happening. But according to the exponential growth curve means, if the resources are completely unlimited, then the population can flourish like anything. That is the concept here. And the next point here is the exponential growth curve equation. Here it is, dn by dt is equal to b minus d into n. So here difference in population number divided by difference in time is equal to b minus d. What is b minus d here? Here it is, birth rate is b minus death rate is equal to r. Here r is equal to intrinsic rate of natural increase. So if organism having more birth rate and less death number will be indicate the population can be flourish. If R value is positive, that indicates the population is progressive. If R value is negative, means the death number is more than the birth rate. That is indicating in future the population can be reduces. That is the important point you need to know. dn by dt is equal to b minus d into n. Here b minus d means r. That's why dn by dt is equal to r into n. This equation explains as one flow chart or one diagrammatic representation of graph. You can find it is the exponential growth curve model is showing that J-shaped curve. This one shows dn by dt is equal to r into n. So this one, number of the different r values of different organisms. Norway rat r value is 0.015 and floor beetle, it is very high r value, that is 0.12. Then next one is, if you find the point as this is, then find out the r value of different timings of human. So while in that cases you can find the point. Here it is, in 1981 the r value of the human population was 0.0205. Then next one is another point, there is one question mentioned here, find out the current value of the r value in humans in India. That is, here you can find the value for this. That is, in 1981 r value is 0.0205. In 2011 r value is 0.02. That you can observe in human reproductive health topic, that is Indian population number increasing for every 1000 members 20, that is 2% increasing. Then in 2024 it is from the Ministry of the Statistics, the data is the value of the human population value increases 0.015. That means 1.5 percentage. That you need to understand. Okay. Then next one is, here it is. This one exhibit the J-shaped curve. At the same condition, the integral form of the exponential growth curve equation you can find as, the integral form of the exponential growth curve is, that is nt is equal to n0 into e power rt. That means nt is equal to the population after a particular time, n0 means initial population, e means that is the base of natural logarithm, that is 2.71828, and r means birth rate minus death rate, and t means that is the time. Then next point, here it is, There is one anecdote, that means a small story regarding this part, explains about the uncontrolled population, how it can be maximized. For this concern, they mention one story, a king and a minister playing a game with a chessboard, and those who lost, they need to submit approximately every square with an increasing number of double time of the greens. If that means if the population increases in this manner, you can find the point as, let us observe here. Here in chessboard, each square, if the number increases one after another one for every block, first square 1 number and second square 2 number, third square that is 4 number, here it is 8, 1, 2, 4, 8, like this. That means at the end of this part, 64th region, it can be millions to millions. Millions of millions number will be applicable. That means if the population is not under control by the environment, that one can be flourished like anything, it can increase in a very large quantity. For that cases, they mention this anecdote story for this. Okay, then after this, next point, let us go for the next point. Here it is logistic growth curve. Logistic growth curve explains about the importance. Nature's act. What is the nature's act regarding this? Nature's act explains here the organism, every organism, whenever it is surviving an environment, the surrounding factors definitely influences. Here you need to understand a given habitat has enough resources to support a maximum possible number beyond which no further growth is possible. Here it is, in a nature, a given habitat has enough resources to support the maximum possible number. For example, in an environment, if the number of organisms, whenever the number of organisms are increasing, the resources can be limitized. If the resources supporting maximum level, after that they will completely stop the providing nourishment, or that is food components, and by that way beyond the level of nature the growth will be not possible. That is known as carrying capacity. Understand? So here the carrying capacity explains nature's limitation of organism. Just let us observe the small concept regarding this. For example, here it is. This is one lake. There is one turtle. It is laying eggs. For example, it is laying 100 eggs. Out of the 100 eggs, due to the environmental condition, there may be 10 eggs can be dead due to the desiccation or dry. Then remaining 90 eggs are converting into new hatchlings, are trying to move towards the sea. Meanwhile, some of the organisms like crabs, they are trying to kill them. Then after that they will kill approximately 20%. Then whenever they are furtherly moving, some of the birds are trying to kill them, approximately 20%. Then whenever they enter into the ocean, some of the predators may kill them, approximately 20%. Then after that, some of the microorganisms like bacteria, they will kill about 20%. So the total capacity to produce 100 eggs, but nature limitizing them different ways. So after all together, only 10% may be turned into adult to lay eggs. What it means? The organism having capacity, reproduction capacity is different, but nature's permission is different. The reproduction capacity is 100, but nature's permission is only 10. That is its carrying capacity. So here what you need to understand, the carrying capacity means where nature limitizing its potential capacity. That is the important point. For these cases, you need to know the equation, that is dN by dt is equal to R into N, K minus N by K. Here K is the carrying capacity. K is the carrying capacity. That is a very important concept from this point. And its graphical representation also very important here, that is, it is a sigmoid curve. Sigmoid curve explains as, here it is, this is carrying capacity, this is the equation. Sigmoid curve which is consisting different stages. What are the stages? You need to identify. Here it is the lag phase and log phase. Log phase is also known as accelerator phase, and deceleration stage, and next one is stabilizing stage or stationary phase. These are all different stages are appearing in logistic growth curve. Okay, then I hope you understand up till this point. Next one is, let us observe the further continuation part. Here in this point you need to know the phases known as, that is acceleration phase, deceleration phase and asymptotic phase. Before that there is lag phase also there. Log phase otherwise known as acceleration phase here. Then next point is about, in India last 100 years, plot them with the check which of the growth pattern of evident. Let us observe this point from the source of the Indian Ministry of the Statistics website. They mention Indian population from the 1947 to 2025. Population flourishes like this, but at the 2025-24 onwards, the population is somewhat not that much increasing. That we need to note. And the next point is about the life history variation. Life history variation part. Some organisms can breed throughout the life, but some organisms can breed only once in the lifetime. Some organisms can lay larger size, small number, but some organisms are laying very small size, large number of the offsprings. How these are variant? The reason behind, every organism need not to maintain the same level of its adjustment with environment. Depending on the nature and environmental conditions, every organism can play its own way of adjustment to the environment, with the environment. By that way, you can find some of the example. Breeding time based. Some organisms can breed only once in lifetime. Example, Pacific salmon fish and bamboo. Can you name another organism in this part? There are some other organisms like Petromyzon. Petromyzon can migrate from the marine water to fresh water to spawn eggs. After spawning, they will die. That means they can breed only once. Another example is, there is wasp with fig fruit. After laying eggs, wasp will die. That's why you need to understand another example for that. And another case, some of organisms can breed many times in their lifetime. Example, birds and mammals. Then next point is, some organisms are laying small sized offspring with huge number, like pelagic fishes and oysters. Oysters can release millions of the eggs. Then some of organisms releasing small number big sized offspring like birds and mammals. If you compare the blue whale, here it is, blue whale produces its baby itself is in tons of the size. The number is very less, but the size is very bigger. That's why all organisms are not maintaining the same level of the offsprings and their capacity of the breeding. That is the life history variation. Finally, we need to understand one concept. Organisms are adjusting according to the environment to maintain the stability of the population. That is the important point. And after that, next one is population interactions. This is a very important topic. Every year they are giving 1 or 2 questions from this population interactions topic. Then population interactions explains about, here it is, every organism definitely having one association with another organism, otherwise they cannot survive. Even if you take the plants also depending on other microorganisms to get nourishment from the soil. Herbivores totally depends on plants and carnivores depends on herbivores. Parasites depends on host and one organism depends on another organism. It is mandatory for every organism to associate with another one. Alone organism cannot survive at all. So while in that cases organisms require association, that is important point here. All living forms need support from the others. Then in this condition, let us observe the interspecific interactions rise from the interaction of populations to different species. This is important point. The interspecific interactions arise from the interaction of populations of 2 different species. So in the case of association of A and B, one can get the benefit or detrimental, means loser, or neutral. If an organism getting benefit by the association, that is known as beneficial. If organism losing by the association, it is detrimental. If organism is not at all affecting either positive or negative, will be considered as neutral. So these are the important points what we need to understand. Next point here it is, the beneficial can be explained in the form of positive and detrimental means negative and neutral means it is 0. These are the symbols we need to apply for this. Then next, here these are the important population interactive conditions. Let us observe one by one. In the case of mutualism, one is plus, another one is also plus. Competition, one is minus, another one is also minus. And predation, one is plus, one is minus. It is predator, it is prey. Parasitism, one is parasite, another one is host. Another one is commensalism, one is positive and getting benefit with association, another one is no benefit, no loss. In amensalism, in one is getting negative and second one is there is no loss, no benefit. While in that cases, these are the 6 important population interactions in environment. We are going to study about this. Then next point here it is, among these all, this is very important point you need to note, that is predation, parasitism and commensalism share a common characteristic feature because the interacting species are live closely together. The interacting species are living closely together in the 3 points, 3 categories known as predation, parasitism and commensalism. This is important bit. Then next one is, let us go with the predation. So predation means not only tiger and deer. There are so many examples are there for the predation and prey. So all herbivores under category of predation because they are eating on another plant. Then another cases, predation need not be the tiger and deer. It is a sparrow eating tiny seeds are also predator. Animals eating plants are also predators. That means herbivores which are broadly ecological context will be considered as predators. So what are the roles of the predator? What predator can do? So while in this concern, what predation can do? So while in that cases, okay, so here the predation, what predation can do? In this condition, predation is maintaining the conduit energy flow. It is maintaining the energy flow is first point. Second thing is it maintains the keep prey population under control. That is biocontrol. So, biocontrol of the population can be maintained by this predation. So, here it is for the predator. If you observe from the predator view, preys are increasing their number, disturb the nature. That is why predator is controlling them. That we need to understand. So, here according to the predator view, prey species could achieve very high population densities and causes ecosystem instability. For that cases, predator is regulating the prey. And for these cases, there is one example, that is in Australia, they introduced in 1920s a prickly pea cactus. Prickly pea cactus means it is a decorative plant which is having number of spines on the surface. This is a decorative plant. They introduced this plant in their gardens and other areas, but unfortunately that one havoc means it increased unlimitedly and grown uncontrolled to the all areas, means they actually introduced that part for their garden, but they grown to the bedroom and bathroom even. That is why the increasing number which make difficulty for the control. For that cases, their control only possible when they introduce some of the organisms like this is cactus eating predator, that is a moth. Whenever they introduce the moth, then only this one controlled. Then any area, for example, this is one area having some organisms. If we introduce a predator into this area, this predator, due to lack of its predators, it can be flourish and kills all the population in this area. That is the application you can find here. The moth here not having any predators ready because it was newly introduced. That is why this moth completely controlled this havoc growth condition of the prickly pea cactus. Okay. Then next one is another example. After the biocontrol, predators maintain the species diversity. Predators maintain the species diversity. The species diversity maintains by the predation, because here there is one example. Here that is in a lake region, that is in American Pacific coast. The starfish, which one feeds on oysters? Oysters are feeding on zooplanktons. By the experimental condition, if you remove this starfish experimentally, what happens? This oysters number will be increases and zooplankton number decreases. So indirectly zooplankton's number maintained by this starfish, that is known as pisaster. So here in this experiment you need to understand the pisaster like starfish, if you remove experimentally from that lake, the oyster number increased, that one causes zooplankton's number decreased, and more than 10 species of the invertebrates, especially zooplanktons and those who are acting as food for the oysters number decreased within a year because of interspecific competition. This word is very important. That is, whenever you remove the predator, interspecific competition increases for the others, not from the predator to the prey. Okay. Then next one is, if the predator is too efficient, it overexploits the prey. What is meaning of this? In case if the predator is too much strong, then all predator preys will be die or will be no more in progress of time. By the progress of time, furtherly that one affects the predator even. Again, predators are also will be dead. So while in that cases, predators in nature are prudent. They are trying to make some of the advanced methods they develop or adopt for the capturing of the prey. At the same condition, prey also take some advantage to escape from the predator. Let us observe some of the preys, how they are trying to escape from the predator with different acts. Especially you can find the camouflage. Here it is, the camouflaged organisms, they are avoiding detected by predators, especially if you consider the frog. So here frog is in green color. If the frog is in green color, they can merge it with the leaf surface. By that way it can be merged. It cannot be identified by the predator. This is one example. Next one is monarch butterfly. Monarch butterfly is highly distasteful to the predator because the special chemical stores in that part. For example, you can find here the monarch butterfly, which is its larval form caterpillar stage. It feeds on poison. It stores in its body surface and turns to use as dark coloration, and this one forms in its designing part of the linings. By that way, if any bird is trying to capture this, it can feel it is completely distasteful. That's why if a bird touches that one, it never touches again the same type of the butterfly. That is known as distastefulness maintained by this. That is monarch butterfly act. Next, another one is the plants are also showing some of the advantage manner, especially acacia and cactus, they are forming thorns here. And next one is some of the plants, they are producing toxin. Example is very important, that is Calotropis growing in abundant fields, they are producing one chemical known as cardiac glycoside, which is a poisonous component. That's why you never find any animal browsing this, because it is poisonous. In sometimes it can affect the cardiac tissue even. And next point here, it is here some of the plants are producing the chemical components which are actually for the defense, but we are using in different purpose as a commercial scale. So some of the plant products which are generally using as defense, known as nicotine, caffeine, quinine, strychnine, opium. Strychnine plants, this is Cinchona officinalis plant, opium, Papaver somniferum, and caffeine from the coffee plants, and nicotine from the tobacco. They are actually producing these components for the defense from browsers or grazing animals. Next one is competition. So here it is, the competition is the next important point. So in this point, competition, when Darwin spoke of the struggle for the existence and survival of the fittest in nature, he was convinced that the interspecific competition is a potent force of organic evolution. This is a very important point. Interspecific competition, between two species competition is a more potent for the formation of organic evolution. It is an important point. Then next point is, competition occurs when the closely related species compete for the same resources that are limiting. So dear students, here this topic is, means especially in the competition understanding requires some of the attention, because here there are some statements are making some of different from the one to another one. That's why listen carefully regarding this. Here it is generally believed that competition occurs when the closely related species compete for the same resources that are limiting. This is one statement. At the same condition, but it is not entirely true is another point. So here it is, if it is not entirely true means, what you need to understand, sometimes it can deviate from the rules. So what are those? First rule is, or means first of the exemption is, totally unrelated species could also compete for the same resources. Totally unrelated species are also can be compete for the same resources. For example, you can find this is one lake and this is one flamingo bird, okay, and here it is, it came for the zooplanktons for this area, and here it is a fish which is also feeding on the zooplanktons. So flamingo and this fish. Both are competing with the common resource, that is zooplanktons, but these two are completely unrelated species. That is one point. And the second thing is, second point. In the second point, what you need to understand, resources need not to be limiting for the competition to occur. Resources are need not to be the limiting for the competition to occur. For example, even the resources are there, but the competition is there in between the two organisms. For example, you and your friend both are sitting front each other and they are having a cake. If one person is trying to eat, another one is trying to give some of the slap to prevent the eating or to avoid the eating. While in that cases, one person eating can be interrupted by another one. In that cases, resources is there. That means a cake is available. But two persons are there, cake is available. But one person, if they are trying to consume, this person is giving warning or he is threatening for the another person. By that way, what we need to understand, the one person can interrupt another person, that is known as, it is interruption point. That you need to understand. Here it is interference competition. The resources, even if it is abundant, still interpretation means interference competition will be appear. This is important point. Next point here it is. Then next one is the final definition for the competition. Here it is. Competition is best defined as a process in which the fitness of one species measured in terms of its R value, that is intrinsic rate of natural increase, already you know that point, and significantly lower in the presence of another species. That means if two organisms are existing in one area, it is two organisms are depending on one another area, means both are living in one common environment or a different way. If this feeding condition can be, if it is influenced by another one, the R value which can be disturbed by the another one. So if one organism R can be disturbed by another one, will be considered as competition. That's why both will be getting negative and negative. So that's why the competition is having both are detrimental in this nature. And the next, in this concept, there are different scientists explain different concepts regarding the competition. In this, one of the important point is Gauss concept. That Gauss explained about the laboratory experiment. He grown two components like Paramecium aurelia, Paramecium caudatum. So if the two organisms are living in one Petri plate, the presence of Paramecium aurelia which completely destroys the Paramecium caudatum. This laboratory experiment explained one point, that is, so here when the resources are limited, the competitively superior species like Paramecium aurelia eventually eliminate the other species, that is Paramecium caudatum. That is leading to competitive exclusion is important point. The field example for this is, what is the field example for this? Here it is, the Abingdon tortoise in Galapagos Island extinct within the decade after the goats were introduced in that island. So Abingdon tortoise they are bigger tortoise with larger in size and a larger neck part. These Abingdon tortoise, they extinct due to the introduction of sheep in the particular area. Whenever the sheep introduced in that islands, that one browse a lot of the grass and make the dry area, and where these Abingdon tortoise laying egg capacity gradually reduced and finally that disturbed the life activities of the Abingdon tortoise in that area. That is one of the example we can observe with the field example as Gauss explanation. The next point is competitive release. Here it is, in the case of a competitive release means two organisms are existing in one area. If one organism is dominating to take the food, another organism is not able to distribute geographically. Just take one example. Here it is, according to competitive release, there is big barnacles and small barnacles are there. This is Balanus and it is Cathamalus. Balanus and Cathamalus. So presence of Balanus, which makes a Cathamalus, will be restricted in a particular area. If you remove the Balanus, Cathameles will grow like anything. That means the presence of one organism will influence another organism restricted to survive in a restricted area. That is known as a competitive release. Means if you remove the Balanus, Cathameles will grow very faster. That you can find in the part of the competitive release. Okay. So, in this condition, competitive release explains about one organism can be released if you remove another organism. Then next point here is the important statement you can find here. The herbivores and plants appear to be more adversely affected by the competition than the carnivores. This is important statement based component. So, where you need to understand the statement is very important. Herbivores and plants appear to be more adversely affected by the competition than the carnivores. Next, another important point, that is coexistence. Before that, Gauss competition principle again they mentioned as, according to Gauss, if two organisms are competing for the resources, if one is dominant, second one can be suppressed and completely eliminated. If you consider this is the final statement, then majority organisms cannot be associated. For that cases, MacArthur concept is different way. He explained the concept. So, competition might evolve mechanisms that promote coexistence rather than the exclusion. So, coexistence is a better way to survive than the extinction, that you can understand. So, resource partitioning means usage of the resources from one to another one. For that cases, you need to understand a simple concept. For example, if you take a big banyan tree or a big tree having different resources. Some birds are using as nest, some birds are using for the fruits, they are depending for the fruits. Some birds are using capturing the insects, some are using for the another way of the shelter. So, here 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of 4 or 5 birds depending on one plant, but one is not disturbing another one. That is known as resource partitioning. Means utilization of the environment with the rationalization of the resources. For that cases, MacArthur explained the concept, that is foraging activities of some birds known as warbler birds. Warbler birds means in a particular tree, some of the birds, warbler birds type A lives in one particular area, B lives in another area, C type lives in another area, and D and E. So, all the birds are living in same plant, but they won't interfere one with another one. By that way, competitive coexistence is more accepted than the others in environment. This means all competitions are trying to convert into coexistence part. Then, next one is parasitism. Here it is, the parasitism concept here is, the parasitic mode of life ensures the free lodging and meals. Lodging and boarding are completely free for the parasites, those are living in host. Then here it is, parasitism shows the character, that is coevolution. This is important point. Parasitism shows coevolution. Coevolution means if any case host and parasite association, in the host and parasite association, if host modified by evolutionary change, then parasite also modifies according to the host. This is known as coevolution. So, coevolution can be applicable for the parasitism. So, while in that cases, here it is, then in these condition points, parasitic adaptations. The parasites are getting some adaptations to live inside the host. Let us observe the important adaptations here. Those are the loss of unnecessary sensory organs, like the living organism inside the gut of a human, they are losing their sensory organs like fascial hepatica. Presence of adhesive organs like suckers and hooks inside the host by for the purpose of cling inside, and loss of digestive system, because some of the tapeworms, they do not have digestive system because they can absorb directly digested food in our alimentary canal. And finally, reproductive capacity will be multiple times because they are having complicated life cycles. That's why they are maintaining high reproduction capacity. The life cycles of the parasitic components are very complex. That's why they required some of the intermediate host. Example they mentioned for this are a trematode parasite, that is liver fluke, requires snail and fish. At the same condition, some of the parasites, they require another host. For example, malaria parasite, that is Plasmodium, also requires a human and a mosquito, like that. So here these are all parasitic components. But one more point is, if malarial parasite also mentioned, another important, they might render the host more vulnerable to the predation by making them physically weak. So parasitism makes effective. For example, if parasite affects the host, host efficiency can be reduced. By that way, host or that organism can be weak and it can be easily captured by the predator. By that way, population control also can be possible. That's why you can find the point as, whenever any ideal parasite should not damage the host, because if host dies, parasite also should die. But in this question, why all parasites are not converted into harmless parasites? If all parasites turns into harmless parasites, it cannot be considered as parasitism. It won't be involved for the regulation of the population in a particular stream. Then next point here is another question raised in this way, that is, why all parasites not turn into harmless? That is the answer. And the next one is some of the ectoparasites. Ectoparasites means living on the surface of host. Example for this are, that is ticks on dogs. Many marine fishes infects with the ectoparasitic copepods. Copepods means they are crustaceans. They are living on that part. Cuscuta. This cuscuta is a parasitic plant that commonly found in growing on a hedge plant, because cuscuta do not have photosynthetic component. That's why it depends on the host and grabs its nutrition and other points for that case. And the next point here it is, mosquito is not under category of parasite. Why? So mosquito requires human blood for its reproductive capacity enhancement, but is not mandatory to live. In case if human is not available, it can go for another animal to grab its blood requirement. Then human is not mandatory or obligatory host for the mosquito. That's why mosquito is not considered as absolute parasite for the human. Then next one is endoparasites. Endoparasites are, they are living inside the body, like in liver, kidney, lungs, red blood cells and etc. These are having extreme specialization to live inside the host, and their morphological and anatomical features are greatly simplified while emphasizing their reproductive potentials. So reproductive potentials enhances with the association of the two or three different hosts. In case if you consider the Fasciola hepatica, which lives in human intestine, in the human liver part, that one, liver fluke. So whenever it enters into the body, before that it can travel to the different ways, including snail and fish, in some cases sheep also. So its life cycle is very complicated to finish. That's why. Next one is brooder parasitism. Brooder parasitism means, here it is, one bird laying its eggs in another bird nest. Example, quail laying their eggs in crow nest. The reason behind, quail is using crow as its host to hold their eggs, because in this condition the crow will lose its babies even. Just you can find the point here. It is the crow nest. Here it is, there are some eggs from the crow, and quail releasing their eggs, they can hatch first before the crow eggs. Whenever they grown better way, and these can push down these crow eggs to downside, and they can increase their sizes, and finally whenever they make sound, then they can leave from the nest, while in that cases crow losing their babies even. That is the parasitic condition for this. So here that is brooder parasitism. Next, commensalism. Commensalism part. So in this case of commensalism, what we need to understand, so one organism getting benefit with the association, another one is no benefit, no loss. The commensalism. Important examples for this commensalism. For example, I am taking one point, that is an orchid growing on epiphyte or mango plant. So here it is the mango plant giving shelter for the orchid plant here. Which one using mango plant as a shelter to expose its body surface for sunlight purpose. So here this mango plant is 0 and it is plus. That is getting positive, means beneficial. And the second point is a cattle aggregate bird with the cattle. Here you can find the point. This is a cow or any animal which is browsing grass in this area. Meanwhile, some of the small birds are here, they are trying to capture some of the insects here. The presence of a cow is beneficial for this bird, but presence of bird is nothing for the cow. That represents one is positive, one is 0, that is aggregate, cattle aggregate and grazing cattle. So the cattle aggregate means it is a bird. Next one is, there is blue whale with the barnacles. Here it is, some of the blue whales are having number of, this is the blue whale, the body surface having number of barnacles. These barnacles are getting benefit, they can move along with the blue whale, but blue whale do not have either benefit or loss. And the next one is, there is sea anemone with the clownfish. So you may know about the Finding Nemo movie. In that part you can find some of the small fishes are living in this area. They are orange red in color. So these are living within the tentacles. Whenever they are living within the tentacles, here these tentacles are having nidoblast cells, they can harm to the other organisms. While in that cases, these clownfishes can be safely present inside, because this clownfish body covered by the mucus lining, they won't harm by these tentacles. By that way they are very safe in this area. No organism try to easily invade to cover this. That's why they are, here it is clownfish getting the plus and sea anemone is 0 for this part. That is commensalism. These are the important examples in related to commensalism. Next point here it is mutualism. This is the last one, mutualism part, representing as both are plus and plus. Both organisms are getting benefit in the interaction of this. So here lichens represent intimate mutualistic relationship between the fungus and photosynthesizing algae or cyanobacteria. Algae and bacteria, algae and fungi together living in lichens, which are best example for the mutualism. And mycorrhiza is another example for the mutualism, where the fungi and the roots of the higher plants are also associating with this. This is another example. Other than these two, a fascinating example for this, that is plant and animal relation. There you can find the most spectacular and evolutionary fascinating example for the mutualism, that is plant animal relationship. Plant animal relation, that is pollination is important. In the case of pollination, so pollens are other points, that is nectar or food for the pollinators, and at the same condition these plants getting benefit for the pollination from one to another plant. So but here we need to understand one point. This point is important to note, that is the naturally beneficial system mutually beneficial system should also be safeguard against the cheaters. Some animals or some of the pollinators can be act as cheaters. From that, these mutualistic conditions should be beneficial system from that part. And moreover, some animals can steal the nectar without adding the pollination. That is, some of the bumblebees can do that for the certain cases. Now, another important plant and animal relation will be considered as coevolution. This is second time we are observing. Coevolution can be applicable for first point is, that is parasitism, and now it is mutualistic condition. Okay, then in this condition, this coevolution explains about the one-to-one relation. That is meaning of, what is meaning of one-to-one relation? Means one particular organism mutualistic with only one organism. That is one-to-one relation is very, very important. So, mutualistic condition, one-to-one relation, which explains about that whenever the one organism modifies in evolution, definitely another organism also modifies according to its importance, means according to its convenience. So, here it is, examples mentioned in this way. There are two examples mentioned in this part. One is wasp with the fig fruit, another one is orchis flower with the bumblebee. So, in this condition, wasp with the fig fruit, while in that cases a fig fruit is consisting, this is fig fruit. This fig fruit is having a small hole. The female bee, that means female wasp, which is in pregnant condition or which is in brooder condition, will enter inside losing the wings and enter inside the egg and laying inside the fruit and laying the eggs. These eggs can be flourished inside the fruit, and finally this mother will die after laying eggs. Then this one providing nourishment for this area. Meanwhile, these eggs are hatching within the fruit. At the same condition, these bees are using for the pollination for the next case. That is why both are getting benefit with this fig fruit along with the wasp. Another example is known as orchid with the bumblebee. So, here it is orchid with the bumblebee. In this condition, this flower is making its specific activity. That means its flower modified into specific petal turns into female like body appearance. That one looks like a female insect. For example, this is the flower having, this one looks like a female bee, and these are the pollination areas. Whenever the male bee comes in this area, it is trying to participate with the pseudo copulation. So, here it is male bee involving for the pseudo copulation, and here it is the orchis flower showing the female like body and which is ready for the pollination of the shoulder part. When it is trying to mate with this with pseudo copulation, it will deposit pollen grains on this part. That's why whenever in any case, if the bee modifies any evolutionary cases during the evolution, if bee modified in different sizes and shapes, then orchis flower also can change its structure. That is the very fascinating example here. It is bewildering example, means it is weird, and it is very wonderful example like you can consider for this part. Then next, here it is the final statement you can find. If the female bee's color pattern changes even slightly for any reason during the evolution, then the pollination success will be reduced unless the orchid flower co-evolve to maintain the resemblance of the petal for the female. So, then only this association can be continued. So, with this you can consider the point, the mutualistic condition can be applicable for some of the example with the co-evolution. Then with that we completed this topic, and summary points are 2 or 3 important are there. This is 4 level organization, you know, that is organisms, population, communities and biome, and remaining all parts are the same. But here the intrinsic rate value, is the inherent potential for the population to grow. There you can find this point. Here it is. The intrinsic rate of natural increase, R value, is a measure of the inherent potential of population to grow. This is another important point for the statement purpose for exam. Okay. Dear students, let us observe some of the important bits regarding this organisms and population. According to the Gauss 2, if 2 species are occupying the same ecological niche and competing for the common resources, then both species will eliminate each other? No. Here interfere type will eliminate with the superior type of species? No. Superior type species will exclude the inferior type of the species is the correct one. Okay. Then next, another question. When the resources are unlimited, the growth curve is usually J shape, but when the resources are become progressively limited, it turns to sigmoid. It is a correct statement. Then predation acting as conduit for the energy transfer across the tropical level. It is also correct statement. Then in another question, observe the below given diagram of the age pyramid. Which one explains what? That is, stable pyramid means the pre-reproductive and reproductive age people must be same. Here it is not stable pyramid, it is a declining pyramid, because pre-reproductive age people are lesser than the remaining of reproductive age people. Then next one is another important question. In select the incorrect statement. The life cycle of ectoparasites, endoparasites are more complex because they are extreme specialization. It is correct. The mycorrhizal association fungi help in plants in the absorption of essential nutrients from the soil. It is also correct. Many marine fishes are infested with the cuscuta like ectoparasitic copepods. Cuscuta means it is a plant, not copepod. That's why it is the wrong statement you need to find. Next, these are the some tough questions in related to organisms and population. Match the following in of the nature questions and the answers. Why are night blooming flowers are generally white? They are visible at low light. Next, how does bee know which flower has nectar? Because electrical field. Next one is, why does the cactus have so many thorns? For the protection. How does the chick spruce recognizes her own mother? By the imprinting, because of the some bigger size with the similar features. Which of the following exhibit the commensalism? The tree and nest will be considered as commensalism. This one is given in other important one of the typical question for this understanding. Remaining all are same for this part. The clownfish living in among the urchins, no. Bloodsucker with the shark, it is a parasite. Mycorrhiza is mutualistic. Then for study of an organism's evolution requires to generate base of population level. Which of the following area explains the relation with link with ecology of organisms and population genetics? This is a direct point, that is a population ecology. Next one is statement based question. Interspecific interactions arise from the interactions of populations, two genders of the same species. No. Here that is wrong. Next one is all populations age pyramids characteristic feature includes sex ratio. Yes. So for every pyramid there is a sex ratio, definitely. Find out the correct combination of population. Here it is. A and B mutualism. So A is flourishing, D is declining. So A and B is not mutualism. Mutualism means must be parallel. And A and D is amensalism. A and D are amensalism. One is increasing, one is decreasing. Amensalism part. And next one is some part missed here. Okay. See here, this is the point. B and C are mutualistic condition. These two are. See the point here. Answer will be these two are mutualism. And here it is. A and B will be commensalism because one is getting plus, one is neutral. Here it is amensalism. And the next one is here, one is A and D will be predation or parasitism because one is plus, one is minus. Like that you can observe the question. The death rate of the Norway rat is 0.030. Then what could be the birth rate of Norway rat with the standard value? Standard value is 0.015. Then 0.015 is the R value. So here if the value is birth rate is 0.045 minus death rate is equal to 0.030, then the R value will be 0.015. That's why answer will be this part. Next one is identify the in-cause statement about the predation. Predation causes extinction of prey, interspecific competition is not the correct statement, because interspecific competition is in between the prey and next consuming organisms. That is. Next point is resource partitioning occurs in between the two species to avoid the competition extinction. So here to avoid the niche overlapping. So this bit you can observe once again. Next one is another point, another important question. Which one of the following population interactions suddenly discovered by Alexander Fleming for the discovery of antibiotics? That is amensalism. Next one is, in this diagram, what is representing A? A is representing as, so A is representing a factor which decides by the nature limit the population count. No, it is a exponential, and K is not applicable for this growth. It is the correct point. And the next one is, in a population per capita, birth rate is 0.7 per capita, death rate is 0.02 during the unit time of period. What will be the population after 10 years with the initial population is 5000. Then you can apply the equation dn by dt. dn by dt is equal to r into n. You can get the answer 5750. Then next one is this one. This diagram explains the following graph represents the changes the two population A and B, herbivores in grassy field. What is the possible reason for this changes? So here, if B is increasing, A is declining, that means population B growth is deadly for the population A. That's why it is the correct answer. Next one, here it is. This is somewhat little bit extension information. The salmon fish is showing more R value, but dies after spawning. That is the correct point. Birds, more K value, means R value means reproduction capacity, K value means it is a carrying capacity, means stability of the organisms. More K value, but they lay eggs throughout the year. And the pelagic fishes, more R value means reproduction capacity is very high, but number of small sized offsprings can be generated. And mammals, more potential capacity K value with more survival offsprings can be produced. That's why answers can be A to 1, B to 2, C to 3 and D to 4. Dear students, the flow chart related to organisms and population, altogether information summarized in this one flow chart explains about organism population can be exhibited with 4 important sub areas like population attributes, population growth, life history variation and population interactions. Among these all, you need to observe the calculatory part in the case of population growth. That is here mortality, natality, immigration, emigration all together can influence the population, can increase or decrease. And in the case of exponential growth curve, one point here it is the exponential growth curve equation, but it is the integrated equation part. Then logistic growth curve more realistic, but it is not realistic because here in this condition there is unlimited resources must be there. Here the limited resources naturally can be present. That's why this graph will be sigmoid curve and this graph will be J-shaped curve. Then next point here it is the life history variation. Life history variation breed once in lifetime. Example, those are salmon fish, petromyzon and bamboo, and many times in lifetime like birds and mammals, and some organisms large number of small sized offsprings. Example, those are pelagic fishes and oysters. Small number big sized offsprings like elephants, like or birds and mammals. Then here the population attributes or characters can be explained with the birth rate, sex ratio, age pyramids, density and number. These are all characters of population. Based on that we can understand population can be flourish or not in the particular area, whether they are comfortable or not. And then very important point, that is population interactions. Here it is mutualism and mutualism having both are plus, competition having both are minus, but predation and parasitism both are having one is plus, one is minus, and commensalism plus and 0, and amensalism 0 and minus and 0. So among these, minus concept explained with the penicillium along with the streptococcus bacteria. Let us observe predation, biocontrol like prickly pear cactus, that is maintain biodiversity, that is physaster removal causes extinction of the zooplanktons, and prudent, that is defense mechanism by the plants and other organisms. Next competition, competitive exclusion explained by Gauss. Next competitive release explained by Connell, and competitive coexistence explained by MacArthur. Then parasitic condition, endoparasites, they are living inside the body, they are well adapted and much advanced with the association of the environmental adjustment, that is adaptations are very high. Ectoparasites are living on the surface, and brooder parasites, one organism depends on another organism for hatching of their babies. Next commensalism, epiphyte on mango, cattle aggregate on grazing cattle, barnacles on whale, sea anemone and clownfish. Next mutualistic conditions, lichens, mycorrhiza, plant and animal relationship, fig, plant and wasp, and next ophrys and bumblebee are other examples. Amensalism, that one is penicillium and streptococcus bacteria. Dear students, let us observe the population growth curve with responses or not, with responses or not limiting the growth. That is, here in this point, this J-shaped curve representing exponential growth, and this is logistic growth. Logistic growth having the lag phase and accelerator phase and decelerator phase, and next one is stationary phase. But in the case of exponential growth curve, which is consisting lag phase and log phase. Log phase is nothing but accelerator phase, it is continuously forms J-shaped curve. So here the logistic growth curve makes this line, that is carrying capacity, which is indication of the nature's limitation. Nature's limitation. This one explains as dn by dt is equal to r into n k minus n. Here it is dn by dt is equal to r into n.